The little ones who show us the kingdom of heaven are often the people who seem to be in the greatest need, or who have experienced greater need than I know I have ever known. On Friday morning, I visited the folks at Friends of the Carpenter again to lead their morning devotion time. We will be supporting Friends of the Carpenter with our noisy offering later this month. I love their mission statement, which says that they are a nonprofit, faith-based day facility that provides safety, structure, and purpose for vulnerable members of our community. These vulnerable members of our community are the little ones that they serve. They are vulnerable and in need of community and encouragement. So we'll be learning a little bit more about Friends of the Carpenter as the month goes along. But this week, when I went to lead devotions, I found that again, I was as blessed by their stories and hospitality toward me as they, I hope, were of me. I shared the daily themes with them of our Vacation Bible School, and I heard story after story of times when Jesus' light was shined upon them in a time of need, or when they themselves saw themselves as an instrument of God's light to others. These apostles, these vulnerable people in our community, these little ones, understand that their struggles in life can serve as strength and encouragement for people who are facing their own difficulties. Here's an example of one of the stories I heard on Friday. One woman, we'll call her Mary, told about the time when her mobile home was literally falling apart and was no longer fit for her to live in. Her next door neighbor was about to move, and rather than put her home on the market, she sold her mobile home to Mary at a price that she could afford. Then Mary needed to find a way to demolish and remove her home that she knew she didn't want anybody else to live in either. She had a couple of friends who were willing to help her out, and in turn, they hired someone else from within the mobile home community who was in need of work to help them do some of the heavy lifting. Mary told us explicitly that she saw the face of Jesus in her neighbors and friends who helped her, and that she hoped that she reflected the light of Jesus to them as one who welcomes the ones that God sends. The apostles Jesus sends out to proclaim the kingdom of heaven point us toward the little ones among us, and they do that in part by taking the position of vulnerability themselves. They help us to notice the weak and powerless. They point us toward the poor and oppressed. In the words of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, apostles are sent to bless the meek, the poor in spirit, and those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. This is how we recognize God's messengers, prophets, and apostles. The ones who bring the kingdom of heaven shine the light of Jesus when the world seems dark, when people don't get along, when someone needs help, and by pointing us to God's gifts in the good times too. We might not recognize the messengers of God at first glance, especially if we aren't looking for them. Jesus calls us to look for these messengers in the little ones, the ones who come to us not seeking glory for themselves or power over others, but the ones who come to serve and give from the heart as Jesus did and as Jesus does. And when we do recognize one of God's apostles and welcome them with something as simple as a cup of cold water, our reward is the transformation of our own hearts to go and love and serve as they do. Thanks be to God. Amen.